Hello, we are in the another talk about the portion of the week, Parashat HaShavua, and today I would like to talk about the personal is political and how our sages created a president of about 2,000 years before this slogan was invented. Okay, so in our portion, generally what we do in Parashat Shavua is, because it's the greatest literature that was ever written, at least the way I read it. It's a mirror for us, and we try to connect it to the current events. And this portion it just goes amazingly together with what's going on now in Israel, because now we have a new leadership instead of Bibi. And this leadership was not chosen by the masses. It is just because Bibi failed to build a government. So we have a new kind of leadership. And in this portion, we have a dispute over the leadership. So let's just really read the beginning. Okay, so we have this parasha is called Korah. Korah is the name of this guy. And this guy is the cousin of Moses. And he, together with two guys from the tribe of Reuben, which is the first tribe, and 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute, they combined against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, and the Lord is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourself above the Lord congregation?" There is something paradoxical about that claim, because as we can see, they are not like the ordinary people. The tribe of Reuben is the first tribe. Korah is a cousin of Moses, and his father is comes after Moses' father in the hierarchy. And there are 250 people that are respectable, and but he claims that for equality. So what we have here is this order, this hierarchy, this materialistic order against the prophets, and because actually they rebelled mostly against Moses. And so I would like to, I'm not going to elaborate about this parasha. I would like to talk about the general concept of leadership in the Torah, in the Bible. So what we have in Judaism, we have a division between three kinds of leadership. We have the priests, that they are the ones, they are chosen. There is one tribe, the Levi, that Korah and Moses and Aaron are from, that they serve the people, the other tribes. They don't have their own land. They live through the sacrifices and through what they live in cities dispersed that were given from all the other tribes, and they are performing the materialistic worship the way it was custom at the time, like sacrificing animals, and they have strict orders, and it passes on from one generation to another in this straight line. And then we have the prophets, and Moses is the ideal prophet, the only ideal prophet that we have. But we don't have, in the Bible, no one is perfect. As I said, it's a mirror. Like every good literature, it doesn't give you an ideal utopian picture. It gives you a description of the sins and the wrongs of humanity. So Moses is not perfect at all, but he's the only one, and he's the way it was molded from the beginning is like, is sort of queer. Is raised in the palace of the king of Egypt as a foreigner. He stutters, is insecure, but his insecurity is also like part of him being modest and humble, which is the quality of the prophets. And prophets, in my eyes, is like what we will call today like artists. They are like the channel to the divine, to the morality of the time. And Moses, he has sons, we know their names, but they don't continue. And he doesn't die, he dies in the desert, and we do not know where he's buried. So there is nothing materialistic about him. And so those are the two kinds of spiritual leadership that we have. We also have the kingdom, but it is something that is not supposed to happen, because we are supposed to be divided into tribes and to have local leadership. And we can see that in the Torah. It's like, I will go through it very briefly. We have a lot of commandments, but when the Torah talks about the king, they say if, it's not like recommended. If after you have entered the land that the Lord your God has assigned to you and taken possession of it and settled in it, you decide, I will set a king over me, as do all the nations about me. Which means it's just like copying, and it's not like something which is supposed to happen. Okay? And we see, like later in the books of the prophets, which is like a historiography of what happens to the Israelites after they settle the land till the destruction of the first temple, is that we see that they do appoint a king, but it is because of the weakness of the two kinds of leadership. The sons of the priest, the main priest Ali, they sin, they become really corrupted, and the first prophet Shmuel is the problem is that he is being continued by his sons, and they also become corrupted. And because the times were very violent, and when the Israelites were living in tribes, there were always wars, they asked for a king. But according to our system, we only have one king, which is God. And we shouldn't have a king. It's just an outcome of the way that the world is broken. And generally, our perception of humanity is as an evolution. We sin, we fix. We sin, we fix, till the end of times, where everything will work in harmony, and then inshallah, the world, we will operate as one, and God will be one for everyone. And yeah, that's the hope for redemption. So now, okay, I want to talk about a bit about the person and political, because like what I do is like it's like I'm very aware of it, and it's very important to declare about it. It's that no person, now we know it scientifically, that no person can ever be an authority for humanity. Like, because we now know that there is nothing, no intellectual or artist is a channel for the whole humanity, because our internal feelings and thoughts always derive from everything that we've been through in life, from our experiences, things that are the internal is connected to the external. And I grew up in what you call is religious Zionism, because like we have like three main streams in Judaism. One is the seculars, that give a fuck about Judaism. They don't do the rule. They don't follow the rules. They just use this ethnic affiliation, which doesn't mean anything in Judaism. We have the ultra-Orthodox. They don't believe in Zionism, and they are like, they keep the traditions of Europe, which is also like shouldn't have happened, and they stick to the past, and they don't renew the rules. They don't update the rules like it is supposed to happen. And then we have this stream of that really, because they made Israel kosher, because they say that we can combine Zionism, nationalism, and Judaism, which, as I said, cannot be true, because in a nation you have a prime minister or president, which is the leader of like so many different tribes, and this is something that cannot coexist with the logic of different communities and different tribes. And now we have like a new, as I said, new leadership in Israel, and the prime minister is going to be Bennett, which is like from this stream. It's the first time in Israel that someone that has a kippah on his head, a yarmulke, is going to be the prime minister. And I come from this stream. I come from this, and ever since I was a child, I rebelled against them, against like my group, because of two things. One was like homosexuality, because what they taught me was that this is the logic of Judaism, is that in every generation we update the rules, because we are very creative in Judaism. We can do it. It's amazing how the halakha is like the practice of the rules can change. And I said, okay, now we know that it's not a choice, and so you can very easily interpret like the few verses that talk about homosexuality, because it's very possible. Now I know. It's like, and now there is like this silent revolution in this stream, and there is a book of an Orthodox rabbi, Stephen Goldberg, and the other thing was, you teach me that in Judaism the man is in the center, not the humanity is in the center, and human lives are, and it's true, they are like the most sacred thing, but you value the land over human lives, and it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so ever since I was a child, I rebelled against it, and now, now I really, really know how like Zionism and Judaism are exactly the opposites, and what this stream is done is like, wow, so bad to the entire world. But at the same time, okay, I think it's like the closest version of Judaism, because they are like modern and open to the world, and they are like, so like everywhere you have the good and the bad, and I grew up, this is also something like why, like I base my method, my ideas on lack. Like, it's like only someone who is hungry can understand like the necessity of food. Or so I grew up in this stream, and I've seen how it works, how this Jewish method works in many ways. But my family was totally dysfunctional, and totally like this is like this irony that I deal with now, is like that I realized that we have in Judaism like two things, two mechanisms of power. One is education, and the other is this endless rituals that we have. And now we know that in order to create, you need to have those two elements. One is the education that you need to acquire from your childhood, And the other thing is like self-discipline and tools that work through your body. Yeah, like, you know, the artists, intellectuals, they do this yoga, meditation, they have this strict schedule, because to be a master and to be an artist or an intellectual it means to be a master, you need to have to work with your physicality and to be your own boss. And it's so difficult. And through my friends and my community, I saw how this combination of community, family life, those rules, the rituals, and the education, you really get the ideal tools to be a master and to realize your potential. And I'm still in the process, because I deal with this lack of real family and community and the tools that I want for given. But what I do have is this good Jewish education. And so from myself, I will move again to the political, and I will continue this idea about the leadership, because as I said, we have this concept of a dual leadership. One is the materialistic, the sacrifice of the animals, the immediate worship of God, which was the way that people needed to practice at the time. And then we have the prophecy, and they are like the moral leaders. They are like the anchor of God. And what happened is like that. In the Bible, we have all these prophets, but according to our belief, at the end of when the Bible ends, the prophecy ends. We don't have anyone with like a direct channel to God. And what we begin having, it's also in the Bible, we have like a group of intellectuals, artists, that they shape the Jewish world, the daily life. And during the Second Temple, we have maybe the biggest dispute in the Jewish world. We had the priests, and they become very corrupted. They become like the neoliberal capitalists of the time, because they have all the wealth, and like they're like the church. They have their own land, their own. So they become, and they value this work, the work of the temple, and they also believe only in the written Torah and not in the oral Torah, like in all those endless daily rules that we, according to our belief, were also given to Moses on Mount Sinai, and we need them because this is like Muslims can understand it, I think, more than Christians for sure, because this is like we have a few things in common with Islam, the education, which stands at the center of Quran, is like it comes from the word to read, the korah, and Muhammad was illiterate, and this is a very big message. He memorized, and poetry was amazing. It was so important at the time in the Arab world, and the Quran was passed on as like amazing poetry. But the Quran means to read. And the other thing is that in Islam, like in Judaism, it's not about only belief, abstract belief. It's about practice. Like the Muslims pray 5 times a day, we pray 3 times a day. There are a lot of rules about hygiene, about charity. It's not like abstract charity. And usually a lot of things. So and also in Islam, you have this group of intellectuals that continue. So during the Second Temple, we had these priests, and we had this group of intellectuals, Chazal, our deceased sages, and they put the Torah, this amazing book of stories, at the center, and they created this halakha, which was for the poor, for the misfortunate, while the priests were like the capitalists, like the leadership of Israel today, they caused like very big gaps, and the Chazalenu, they created a system. It was an evolution, but of free education, and they were condescending, and they like created this elitist religion that goes against the illiterate and whatever. But now we know how that actually it's like it's not like anti-elitist. It's like when we give people the tools of education, we actually give them, if everyone was given the same kind of education and exposure to art and literature, then we could have like the right leaders. But what we have today is Protestantism, actually, and not Judaism. Judaism is not connected to Protestantism like it is connected to nationalism. And in Protestantism, you have the big difference between Protestantism and Catholicism is that people were given the right to read and be really exposed to some kind of literature, not the great literature, which is the Torah in Hebrew. And but what happened was that they didn't have this group of intellectuals. So only and they didn't create the system of free education. So only the privileged, the what will later become a bourgeoisie, they got the right to read. Of course, like the books were so expensive and rare, and it was like, and then we have this connection that we have in the Western world. In Germany, it was very sharp between education and financial well-being. So now we have this. Now our intellectuals and artists, they are not connected to the people, and they cannot serve as prophets. And since, I don't know, Descartes, maybe we have this wrong notion of one intellectual and one artist, which is like a prophet. But actually now we know today that really the system of our sages, they created these two big books, the Mishnah and then the Talmud. And in those books, they are like, for me, it's like this is one of the things that Judaism should bring to the world, is that we have the discussions, like the protocols of their discussions, and we have the stories of their lives, of this leadership, so that we see the connection between the personal and the political. We can understand where they come from, their class, their temperament, their personalities, and then we can see like the connection. And also, we know today that really, if we want to go to understand the masses, we need to have like this kind of wisdom, connection between between minds, and this is part of the vision for the world, because if you want to have this channel to the divine, to the moral truth, and to our emotions and thoughts, we need to have a group. And this is just like what I'm doing now. I will end with, again, with my personal, like, I couldn't do this without Uri. I can't talk to myself. I need a group. And my ideas, they represent some kind of a truth. But really, I think that this is just like part of an art process that at the end, inshallah, will somehow connect people together, and then it will be like the real channel. And so inshallah, in the name of Muhammad and Moses and all that is only. Shabbat Shalom. Bye.